Hello, gentle listener, and welcome to Nocturnal Transmissions, the fortnightly podcast that brings you dark tales, both old and new, performed by voice artist Kristin Holland. Now, first things first, we want to give a big thank you to our dear friends who've chosen to support us by subscribing to our Patreon page. What is Patreon, I hear some of you ask? Patreon is what is rather foppishly referred to as a membership platform that allows you to lend your support to endeavors that you wish to see flourish. We decided to embrace Patreon for Nocturnal Transmissions in order for us to A, continue, and B, improve in our delivery of exciting, flavoursome morsels of terror to you, our beloved listeners. Through a small monetary contribution, which is automatically deducted each month, you can help us keep the dark flame alive. And score some fun goodies for yourself in the process, including exclusive Patreon episodes, the first of which will drop in 2 weeks. Kalu Kalay. If you're interested in finding out more, please visit patreon.com and search for Nocturnal Transmissions, or simply use the Become a Patron button located on the homepage of our website, nocturnaltransmissions.com.au. Now, who remembers a little story we released last year called Herb? Oh, I certainly do. What fun that one was. I, for one, will never use oregano again. Or maybe I'm mixing that one up. Anyway, the author of that chilling little number has another story they'd like to share with us, and we here at Nocturnal Transmissions are quite happy to accommodate them. Nocturnal Transmissions is proud to present RIIPPUVUUS. RIIPPUVUUS. I am a failure. I have been since the day I was born. I came too early, weighed too little, and killed my mother in the process. My father dumped me, and I was adopted by a foster farm couple who adopted children for the check. I was completely forgettable. I was an average child until middle school, when I stopped giving a shit and started flunking. I never joined a club or played a sport. I had the most superficial of friends, only there for a good time, when I was a good time. My siblings were cliquish, and I was not included. They made fun of me, called me Laurie, which I hated. Never did figure out how to stand up for myself. I was pushed from one grade to another, the school system just trying to be done with me. I barely graduated. I turned 18 and was turned out. There were a few times I had jobs and apartments, roommates who not only tolerated me but seemed to like me even. I'm funny, you see, when I want to be. But my drinking always screwed me over. Lost the jobs, lost the apartments, and the friends. I'm 37 and homeless. I've done nothing remarkable or notable with my life. If I died, I would not be missed. And I guess I was all right with that. I am no longer. Not after that night. I sometimes wonder, especially if I was lucky enough to stumble into a pollutant of some kind. I did everything I could to lay my hands on whatever, from alcohol to pills to heroin. Whatever I could get to make me forget my horrible waste of a life, I took it. On this day in particular, I had just procured a large bottle of wild turkey and hoped to find somewhere to drown in it. I wandered pretty far this time, cracking the bottle as soon as I hit the tree line. The crunch of the frozen leaves and snow under my feet was almost therapeutic, and the bourbon made me forget about my situation. For a little while. Sleeping trees stretched themselves skyward, looking a lot like dark fingers reaching up from the ground. I cannot tell you how many I bumped into or pissed behind. After I'm not sure how long, I found myself completely surrounded by dense forest as night approached. The air was positively frigid, and despite the outrageous amount of alcohol in my system, my teeth were chattering. I needed to find somewhere to bed down for the night. I was too far in the forest to head back, so I pointed myself towards a rocky hillside and hoped for a cave. The country was still getting over a record snowfall from the previous week, and the snow in the forest hadn't melted nearly as much as in town. In spots it was up past my ankles. I hadn't realized it because I was drunk, but the snow had soaked through my boots and soaked to my socks. Or what was left of them. It had been a while since the last clothing drive. The landscape before me was glittering in the sun. There was a straight stretch ahead that suddenly sloped down at a steep angle, then rose sharply up into that rocky hillside. I took a swig every couple of steps, sadly eyeing the quickly approaching bottom of the bottle. "Goodbye, sweet friend," I sighed, and dropped the bottle. A hollow thud its farewell. "I wish you'd been a needle." I burped and slid down the incline, foot first into a small stream, breaking the thin ice. "Shit," I whispered, planting my feet on either side of the water. I walked the line, scanning the rock face for a cave. I had to sidle around an old car. Who on earth would drive a car out here, I do not know, pressing myself against it and the hill. It was nearly dark, nearly impossible to see. I didn't want to sleep in there, but I thought I might have to. Better that than in the open. Then, there it was. The two slopes curved away from each other, opening up to a perfectly circular little clearing, completely surrounded by the two hills which wrapped around and connected. A few trees, obviously dead and not just out for the winter, speckled the space, and at its center sat a house. One story, maybe painted white at one time, bluish roof which appeared to have no cave-ins, and two windows staring out from either side of the front door. I wiped my dripping nose and made my way to it. It was fairly large, taking up most of the clearing. I paced around it, stepping over the little stream I'd followed. It ran onto the front step and emptied out from under the back of the house. There were no other windows, just the two up front. I peeked in. The place was obviously abandoned. The left window showed me a wood-paneled room that had a collapsed bed frame, an open closet with nothing inside, and a raggedy clock on the wall above the door opposite the window. The window to the right looked more promising, though. A hideously patterned couch, still intact, sat in the center of the room. Tacky wallpaper peeling from the walls, fireplace to the right, and 2 armchairs, both folding in on themselves. Behind all that was an entryway to what was most likely a kitchen, but I couldn't tell for certain. "All right, door. Don't be a bitch." I crossed my fingers and tried the knob. The door opened easily, swinging inward. Praise be, whoever's up there. I smiled and blew a kiss to the sky, stepping in and shutting the door behind me. I was immediately engulfed in darkness. I reluctantly pulled out my handy-dandy flashlight, hoping the batteries inside had enough juice to get me through the house. I clicked it on and swung it around. I was standing in a cramped foyer, also wood-paneled, that had another door just opposite me. "Oh, no. This one will be locked," I groaned, and tried the knob, which opened just as easily as the front. I couldn't believe my luck. Usually doors are locked for me, but 2 unlocked doors in a row? Someone big and bearded must have been looking out for me. "Hopefully you can fix my toes as well," I said to the big man in the sky, wincing as I opened the door and stepped into the next room, which was identical to the first, but a little longer. What the hell? I marched forward on freezing, sore feet, irritated and not thinking rationally, and swung the next door open. Another tiny wood-paneled foyer. "Now I'm just getting pissed off, you little square-ass house." I continued forward, opening 9 more doors like the last before I'd had enough. "Screw you too!" I shouted and kicked the next door, collapsing from the pain. I shifted myself upright and slid off one of my boots. My toes were red and sore, except for my last and pinky toes. They were pale and hard, numb to the touch. Oh, my dumbass and my dumbass boots. I slid the other off and was pleased to see that all the toes were a tender red. I tossed my boots to the side, pulled my knees up to my chest. I took off my coat and wrapped myself in it, feet included, as best I could. I leaned my head against the wall behind me, clicked out my flashlight, and passed out. I woke some time later. Again, I'm not sure how long. The first thing I noticed was how thirsty I was, then how bad my head ached. Then I noticed the sound. Tapping, drumming like fingers on a table. I slowly reached for my flashlight, raised it in the direction of the sound, and clicked the light on. Peeking around the edge of the door opposite of the one I entered in, was a great white eye. Stretched skin around it opened so wide its inner eyelid was visible, bright red and wet. The skin was mottled red and orange and yellow, sticky-looking like partially chewed gum on a sidewalk. Coarse black hair shot wildly from the top of its head, and long fingers on a particularly long hand held the door. A moment after the light hit it, it stretched a smile that curved upward so wide I thought the edges of its mouth would touch its eyes.
Lawrence Wayne. I have been waiting for you to wake up.
It spoke through its incredibly long teeth, hissing the words at me. I let out a high-pitched whine in response. Then I started crying. For a moment or two, all I could do was stare and cry. Cry because I couldn't understand what I was seeing. And my primal instinct knew it wasn't something I should be seeing. But something about its smile told me that wouldn't do for long. I stood and nearly tripped over my boots, wielding my flashlight like some pitiful sort of weapon. I backed up into the door behind me, eyes locked on the door thing's wide eyes. I felt around behind me with my right hand, searching for the doorknob without turning. I noticed immediately that the door behind me was open. I grabbed the edge and pulled, but something pulled back. I jumped forward and whipped around, actually tripping over the boots this time. I dropped my light on the floor, scrambled to grab it, then aimed it at the other door. There the thing stood, the left side of its face mirroring the other. I swung my light to the other door. There it was. The thing stood in both doorways, holding the door open just enough to slip half its face in. Both halves smiled at me.
Lawrence Wayne Hardy, why are you so quick to leave? You won't leave.
It drummed its pointed fingers on the door.
Patience. And when the water stops, we'll play.
What? I whined, then let loose a sob as my flashlight flickered and dimmed a bit.
We will soon wait together in the dark, Lawrence Wayne Hardy III. Oh my, such a joy! I see so much better in the dark.
What do you want from me? I don't have anything.
You have toes, Lawrence. I will start there, and then I will have your fingers. Digits first, Lawrence Wayne.
Oh, God. I sobbed and rubbed my eyes, snot dripping down my face. My breath was rushed, puffing up in clouds as I panicked. Please, let me go.
Absolutely not, Lawrence Wayne Hardy. Absolutely not. I will be keeping you till the water stops. Then I will turn you into pieces.
Water? What water?
Water under the house, Lawrence Wayne Hardy III. Snow water. It'll melt, it'll run, then it will disappear, and I will rip you to shreds and consume your parts.
When it spoke, its face never moved a muscle. The words seemed to slip between its elongated round teeth. In stereo, when one half spoke, the other did, but in two separate voices, one over the other.
And to think,
It started again.
no one will ever know you are gone. You don't even have friends, Lawrence. All that keeps you alive now is running water, limited water, disappearing water. And once you are gone, only I will remember. I will remember how delicious you were. Look at you. Bourbon soaked.
I pressed my back flat against the wall so I could watch both halves of the thing. I stayed on the floor, rocking slightly and rubbing my sore feet.
Shall I come to your level, Lawrence Wayne?
As it said this, both halves lowered down, and its long, thin knee came out from behind the door. There was more than just a hand and a head, but an entire body, somehow in both places at once, blocking my exit.
Will anyone even think of you once you are gone? Does anyone even think of you now?
It laughed.
I think of you, Lawrence Wayne Hardy. I will think of you until your bones I have broken are dust. How beautiful you are. How delicious you will be.
I took 3 deep, shaking breaths, trying to calm myself. I slapped myself, snapped my fingers a few times, and said my ABCs very quickly under my breath. Still a little tipsy, but not as plastered. Certainly shouldn't be hallucinating. But maybe I was. Maybe my liver was finally giving out and I was dying, and this is all in my head. I stood, shook my shoulders, and stretched my neck. It slowly slid back up to its original height, leg disappearing behind the door as it extended. It tilted its head downward, looking up at me from under its bald brow, but continued to smile. You're not real. I wiped the tears from my cheeks and turned myself toward the other one, the way I had come in. You're not real. I am hallucinating.
Lawrence Wayne Hardy III. Lawrence Wayne Hardy. Lawrence Wayne Hardy III.
It shook its head each time it said my name, and somehow smiled wider.
I am very real, Lawrence. And I am what will kill you.
You're not real. I closed my eyes and reached out. You are not real. My fingers reached out and touched clammy, tacky skin. Its finger bones and bones in its hands were directly under the skin, no fat or muscle between them. My breath quickened, and I started crying again as I looked up into its face. Its smile stretched even further, and it brought another left hand around the door to quickly pat mine. I recoiled wildly and found myself flat on the ground, staring up at the spinning white ceiling. I cried and laid there, whimpering while the thing talked to me about my vivisection and exsanguination.
far will your innards stretch, Lawrence Wayne? So far, I'm sure. We shall see how your bones will snap, crack, crackle, splinter. All your parts we shall stack and see how long it takes you to bleed out. I'll leave your head on your shoulders, though. We'll talk together for years. Lawrence Wayne Hardy, your skull and I will have grand conversations.
It began tapping its fingers on the door again, both hands with impatience. I lay there until the flashlight was nearly out, the blue light fading to almost nothing. I cringed, thinking of how its ropey skin had felt, how those teeth resembled butter knives up close, serrated edges and all, its bony fingers. Bones. It had bones. I sat up quickly, the blood rushing to my head, making me dizzy. What's your name, eh?
Lawrence Wayne Hardy III. Lawrence, you old scoundrel. I thought you would never ask us my name.
It feigned wounded, then smiled again and said,
RIIPPUVUUS. I am RIIPPUVUUS.
RIIPPUVUUS. I smiled and stood, swinging my fading light between the two, struggling to remember which was the way I came in. I'd just have to guess. Well, RIIPPUVUUS, you have bones.
Yes, of course I do.
Bones break, RIIPPUVUUS. Its smile disappeared, and as my light died out, I saw it snarl, stretched teeth filling its face. I missed the smile.
Just give in and die, Lawrence Wayne. Who will remember you? No one. If you run, who is it you will run to? No one. I know. I will.
I picked a direction and ran as fast as my frostbitten feet would take me. I dropped my dead flashlight, dropped my shoulder down, bracing my arm, and slammed it into the door. The door shut with a vicious crunch, breaking RIIPPUVUUS's fingers. It screeched, and I quickly flung the door open. I dashed inside, tripping over the thing. I cannot tell you how many limbs I felt, but it was well more than two. It slung its hands at me, scratched my face several times. It hissed with pain and curled up under me. It took some force to peel myself away from it. I felt its hands reaching for my bare feet as I scrambled forward, ready to slam into another door. I hit the next door and it splintered. I could hear RIIPPUVUUS behind me, breathing heavy and slinging curses at me.
Lawrence Wayne Hardy, you fucking cunt!
I fumbled for the doorknob and opened the door, my miserable feet filling with splinters as I floundered forward. I shut the door behind me, but heard it open seconds later, just as I reached the next door. I opened it, shut it behind me. I tried to run, but my feet protested.
Lawrence Wayne Hardy III, you are worthless and mine. Do you hear me? You will not leave.
I slung open the next door, not bothering to close that one. I could hear it behind me. Each of its steps made a sucking sound as it lifted its foot. I lumbered my way through one door after another, counting doors as I went, feet going numb, and now my shoulder ached. RIIPPUVUUS shouted threats behind me, but it was slowing down too. I pushed open the next door, breathing heavily and needing to lean on the wall to hold myself up. RIIPPUVUUS was in worse shape, slowly pacing behind me, voice stretched thin and insults coming few and far between. This door opened to a new room, one I hadn't seen before. In front of me was a dilapidated mud room, cobwebs floating in every corner. An ugly couch, 2 collapsing armchairs, a fireplace, a blue door with paint peeling before me, window letting the morning light pour in. There was a door to the right, which I was certain led to the abandoned bedroom. I turned around, and behind me was an ancient kitchen, sink red with rust and countertops dusty with disuse. I stood in an open entryway that led from one room to the other. No doors behind me. No RIIPPUVUUS. I must have been high. I chanted this to myself for some time. Then I finally looked down at my feet. My last 2 toes of my right foot were white and hard, the other toes bright red and sore. I scanned the room, but my shoes were nowhere to be seen. Neither was my flashlight. Maybe I had slept in the other room, and in my stupor I left them there. I wanted nothing more than to leave, but having convinced myself that it was all some diluted vision, and with my toes like they were, I was too afraid to trek through the woods barefoot. I slowly and gently padded my way across the dilapidated living room. I reached the door, walking on the sides of my feet. I raised my hand to grab the knob. The door opened slightly. The doorknob, not in my hand. 4 narrow fingers wrapped around the door, pulling it open just enough to reveal a wide, white eye, a mottled face, and a broad smile filled with lengthy teeth. I turned and ran, ignoring the searing pain in my feet. For the last time, I hurled open the 12th door and plunged out into the snow. I didn't look behind me. I didn't stop. I ran and I ran until I stumbled out into a road. I collapsed and woke up some time later in a hospital. They kept me for ages. Apparently I had pneumonia and 100 other things wrong with me. I'm 2 toes short now. But who needs 'em? The girl who found me passed out in the middle of the road that morning, visited me regularly in the hospital. So we became pretty fast friends, and now she gives me rides. Here. I've been sober for 3 months since. I know most of you probably don't believe me. I knew you wouldn't, but it's high time I shared. So, there it is. Thank you for listening anyway. My name is Laurie, and I am an addict. RIIPPUVUUS by TQ. If you would like to find out more about this author, please visit our website, nocturnaltransmissions.com.au, where you'll find information on all the authors we feature here on the show, and links to their work. Amongst our new Patreon subscribers, you remember Patreon, I was banging on about it endlessly at the start of the show. We have some acolytes we wish to welcome and thank for their patronage. Donica Shelley Moody, welcome. Eliza Van Dyke, William Alexander, Sam, Rafael Estrada, Caroline Dixon, Kyle, and Randy. Your support is helping to make this pernicious production happen. We'll have your adorable membership cards out to you at the start of the month. For those of you who haven't as yet, don't forget to send in your pictures. FYI to our Patreon uninitiated, Acolyte is the second tier of membership we offer on Patreon. We have 2 others from which you may choose in accordance with your budget and ego. To all our minions, acolytes, and cohorts, we say thank you. Nocturnal Transmissions is assisted in being brought to you by our generous cohorts, Michael Wood and Thomas Arvin. All non-public domain stories are featured with the permission of the authors. All voices and production are concocted by Kristin Holland. Until next time, watch the skies, fear the dark, and don't trust anyone. Especially yourself. Good night, gentle listener.